My boyfriend is trying to be a streamer and it's hard to explain to him that it won't happen. I am a 24-year-old woman, and my boyfriend is 29 years old. We've been together for roughly 5 months now. While our relationship is still relatively new, I found myself in a situation where I feel the need to share something but don't really know who to turn to. Most people in my circle know my boyfriend personally, and I'm not comfortable discussing this with them, so here I am. For Christmas, one of the gifts my boyfriend gave me was an Xbox. It was a thoughtful and generous present, and I was genuinely excited about it. However, there's a backstory to this that makes the gift a little more complex than it seems on the surface. Some time ago, I was casually reading something out loud to him from a gaming news website. I don't even remember why I was on the site that day, but one particular article caught my attention. It mentioned how Ninja, one of the most famous streamers, makes something like $500,000 a month on Twitch. It wasn't something I had any personal interest in, but I thought it was fascinating and absurdly impressive, so I shared it with him. That piece of information seemed to spark something in him. Ever since I mentioned it, he has been talking more and more about wanting to become a streamer himself. At first, I thought it was just a passing thought or a random idea. I mean, lots of people casually think about streaming as a hobby or a potential side gig. But as time went on, it became clear that he was seriously considering it. He started talking about the equipment he would need, the games he could play, and the kind of audience he might attract. While he hasn't made any major moves yet, like setting up a channel or investing in equipment beyond the Xbox, it's definitely something that has captured his imagination. I don't really know how I feel about all this. On the one hand, I want to be supportive of his interests and ambitions. Everyone deserves to dream and pursue what makes them happy, and if streaming is something that excites him, I want to encourage him. But on the other hand, I can't help but feel a bit skeptical. Streaming is incredibly competitive, and very few people actually make significant money from it, let alone anything close to what Ninja earns. It requires a lot of time, effort, and consistency to even get noticed, and there's no guarantee of success. I'm worried that he might be setting himself up for disappointment or that he might invest too much time and energy into something that doesn't pan out. I also wonder if this sudden interest in streaming is more about the potential financial rewards than a genuine passion for gaming or creating content. While there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to make money, I think it's important to have realistic expectations and a clear understanding of the challenges involved. I don't know if he's fully thought this through, and I don't want to discourage him, but I also feel like it's my responsibility to help him stay grounded. Now, every time my boyfriend plays a game, he streams it. When I said in the title that he's trying to become a streamer, I should clarify that he's really not putting in the effort that would typically be required to build a successful streaming presence. What he's doing, essentially, is just streaming whatever happens to be on his screen from his Xbox. There's no face cam, no microphone, no commentary, just the raw gameplay. While there's nothing inherently wrong with that, it's a very basic setup that doesn't offer much in terms of personality or engagement for potential viewers. Recently, he expressed genuine surprise that he doesn't have many viewers tuning into his streams. He seemed puzzled, almost as if he expected an audience to materialize simply because he was streaming. I tried to explain to him as gently as I could that platforms like Twitch and YouTube are highly competitive spaces, and what really draws people in isn't just the gameplay, it's the personality and charisma of the streamer. People watch streams not just to see someone play a game but to connect with the streamer, to laugh at their commentary, and to enjoy the overall entertainment experience. I tried to frame it in a constructive way, emphasizing the importance of creating a unique and engaging presence. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to resonate with him. One of the major challenges here is that he's incredibly camera shy. He doesn't even like having his picture taken. Over the years, this has become such a known trait of his personality that his mother eventually stopped trying to get him to pose for family photos. If you look through his social media, or even through his family photo albums, you'd struggle to find a handful of pictures of him. Knowing this, I genuinely don't understand how he thinks becoming a streamer would work for him. The most successful streamers often rely heavily on their on-camera presence, whether that means engaging directly with their audience, showcasing their humor and reactions, or creating a visually appealing setup that draws people in. Without that, it's incredibly difficult to stand out. On top of that, his demeanor while playing games is another obstacle. He tends to sit quietly, fully absorbed in the game, and rarely says much. Occasionally, he'll mutter a frustrated "fuck" when something goes wrong, but that's about the extent of his commentary. It's not exactly the kind of engaging or entertaining behavior that viewers are drawn to. The streamers he admires and wants to emulate, those with millions of followers and thriving communities, have something that sets them apart. Whether it's natural humor, a unique style of commentary, or a larger-than-life personality, they all have an it factor that makes people want to watch them. As much as I care about my boyfriend and want to support him, I have to admit that he just doesn't have that it quality when it comes to streaming. It's not that I think he's incapable of succeeding in general or that he lacks talents. He's a great guy and I care about him deeply. But when it comes to streaming, it's hard to see how this could realistically work for him unless he's willing to step out of his comfort zone in a big way. He would need to address his camera shyness, find a way to make his streams more engaging, and develop a unique identity as a content creator. All of that requires time, effort, and a level of self-awareness that I'm not sure he's fully considered. At this point, I'm not sure how to approach the situation. I don't want to discourage him or come across as unsupportive, but I also don't want to feed into unrealistic expectations. I feel caught between wanting to protect his feelings and wanting to be honest about the challenges he's likely to face. As his partner, I want to help him succeed in whatever he chooses to pursue, but I also think it's important for us to have an open and realistic conversation about his goals and the steps he's willing to take to achieve them. For now, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to navigate this and support him while also encouraging him to think critically about his aspirations. He even brought up the idea that I should start streaming, suggesting that I could do well because I'm pretty okay at some games. I laughed it off and told him I had no interest in pursuing that. Streaming isn't something that has ever appealed to me, and while I'm happy to enjoy games casually, I don't see myself dedicating time and effort to an audience or a platform like that. Still, I didn't want to outright dismiss his suggestion or appear overly critical, especially given my experiences in a past relationship where I was labeled as negative. I've made a conscious effort not to be that person in this relationship, so I tried not to rain on his parade. For some context, he's currently in school studying to become an architect, which is a demanding and highly skilled profession. Alongside that, he has a steady union job that pays well, providing him with a solid financial foundation. Because of this, I don't believe his newfound interest in streaming is solely about money. He's not in a dire financial situation or desperate for an additional income source, so it seems like more of a hobby or a dream fueled by the allure of fame and success that's so often associated with popular streamers. However, it's starting to feel like this hobby is taking up more and more space in his life, and I'm beginning to have concerns about where it's heading. This week there was a moment that really tested my patience. I had a full day of errands to run, and he told me he'd take care of some chores to help out. Specifically, he said he was going to pick up his laundry and grab the groceries we needed for me to cook dinner when I came over later. It was a reasonable plan and I appreciated his offer to handle those tasks. However, when I arrived at his place after several hours, I found him sitting in his room in his boxers, streaming for an audience of 0 viewers. The laundry hadn't been picked up, the groceries were still undone, and it was clear that he hadn't moved from his chair the entire time. At that point I was genuinely upset. It's not just about the chores not being done, it's the principle of making a commitment and not following through. He had all the time in the world to take care of what needed to be done, but instead he chose to spend those 6 or so hours streaming without any meaningful outcome. I didn't say anything in the moment because I didn't want to start an argument or come across as overly critical. Still, it was frustrating, especially since this behavior is becoming more frequent. He didn't used to play video games this much, and now it feels like it's all he does in his spare time. Another concern is our upcoming trip to Japan, which is scheduled for June. It's something we've both been looking forward to for a while, and I've been diligently saving for it. In fact, I managed to set aside my portion of the trip budget over a month ago. Meanwhile, he hasn't even started saving. Instead, he's now talking about buying expensive equipment for his stream. This isn't just a passing comment. It seems like he's seriously considering making significant purchases to upgrade his setup, despite the fact that he doesn't have an audience and hasn't put much thought into the content he's creating. I'm genuinely worried that if he follows through with these purchases, it could jeopardize our trip. Japan is something we've both been excited about, and it would be heartbreaking if it were ruined because he prioritized streaming equipment over saving for the experience. I haven't brought this up to him yet because I'm not sure how to approach the conversation without it turning into an argument or making him feel unsupported. However, it's becoming harder to ignore these concerns, especially as his focus on streaming continues to grow at the expense of other responsibilities. At this point, I'm feeling torn. On the one hand, I want to support his interests and give him the space to explore this new hobby. On the other hand, I'm seeing clear signs that it's starting to interfere with other important aspects of his life, including our plans and commitments. I don't want to come across as controlling or unsupportive, but I also think it's important to have a candid conversation about priorities and responsibilities. For now, I'm trying to figure out the best way to approach this, balancing my desire to support him with my growing concerns about where this is all headed. The other night he said to me happily that he has one dedicated viewer that watches every time he's on. What he doesn't know is that Twitch counts you as a viewer when you start the stream, so the follower he's talking about is himself. I just really didn't have the heart to tell him because I know how embarrassing that would be. It's become a point of annoyance every time I hear the word streamer. Any advice here? Or should I just let this Twitch dream fizzle out without my input? She posted an update was. Some of you may not have been around to read the comments after I originally posted this, but there were some additional details I shared in response to a Redditor who related to my situation. She had experienced something very similar in her past relationship and explained how her ex had what seemed to be a video game addiction. Her story mirrored my experience so closely that it was almost eerie. Unfortunately, she has since deleted her comments for privacy reasons, but her insights stuck with me and added to my growing concerns about what I'm dealing with now. Yesterday after work, I had to rush home to deal with some family matters, so I didn't get a chance to sit my boyfriend down and talk to him as I had planned. We only exchanged a quick 5-minute phone call and passed each other briefly at work. There just wasn't time to address the situation properly. However, I made up my mind that today would be the day I confronted him. My schedule was clear, and I felt ready to have an honest and direct conversation about what's been going on. This morning, after I woke up and showered, I checked the Xbox app to see if he had been online recently. Sure enough, it showed that he was last active just 30 minutes earlier at 7 a.m. This meant he hadn't slept all night again, which is becoming a troubling pattern. I decided not to contact him immediately, figuring I'd wait until later in the day to approach the subject. Today happened to be his day off, so when he finally called me around 3 p.m., it wasn't surprising to hear that he had just woken up. What struck me though was the sound of Overwatch in the background. As he casually asked how my day was going, he cut me off before I could respond. He suddenly and angrily yelled, "Why the fuck won't this guy get off Hanzo? He fucking sucks." I was at work with a client approaching me, so I didn't have time to react. I quickly hung up and didn't call him back until after work when I was walking home. By then, I had calmed down and decided to ease into the conversation with some small talk before bringing up the more serious topic I wanted to discuss. However, I didn't even get a chance to start the small talk. As soon as he answered, he asked why I sounded slightly out of breath. I explained that it was because I was walking through snow up a hill. His response? "It's snowing?" I was stunned. The snow had been coming down heavily for hours. It wasn't just a light dusting, it was a significant storm that anyone paying the slightest bit of attention to their surroundings would have noticed. His apartment is set up in such a way that you can't enter the hallway leading to the kitchen or the front door without at least catching a glimpse of the outside. Yet he had no idea it was snowing because he hadn't bothered to look out his window all day. He had spent the entire day in his bedroom, completely immersed in his video games. This moment hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just about the games anymore, it was about how detached he was becoming from reality. Not noticing a snowstorm is one thing, but spending every waking hour in a single room disconnected from the world around you is another. It's clear that gaming is no longer just a hobby for him. It's becoming all-consuming, and it's starting to affect his ability to engage with even the most basic aspects of daily life. At this point, I feel like I'm at a crossroads. I need to address this with him directly, but I also know it's going to be a difficult conversation. I'm not sure how he's going to react, and I worry that he won't take my concerns seriously. However, I can't ignore this any longer. It's not just about the video games, it's about the lack of balance, the unfulfilled responsibilities, and the growing distance between us. I care about him deeply, but I'm starting to wonder if this is a sign of something bigger that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. For now, I'm trying to gather my thoughts and find the right words to express how I feel without coming across as unsupportive or overly critical. This snapped me into asking him if he is planning to do anything else with his life besides play video games. He said of course just not right now. He had not showered or eaten at all today. I asked and he admitted it. I asked him if he thought that was healthy and he said with an edge, "What? Playing video games? Of course. Am I fucking smoking meth or something?" I clarified on this and just decided to say it. I said I think he has a problem. The skipping work, not sleeping or eating, and overall the pure amount of hours he dedicates to playing them. He then did what most addicts do, got angry and then spun it back on me. When I finally brought up the topic during our conversation, his immediate response was defensive. He reminded me that I was the one who had bought him the Xbox in the first place, saying, "What the fuck did you expect me to do with it?" He followed this by pointing out that I've been playing video games long before we were together, as if that somehow justified his behavior. While it's true that I've always enjoyed gaming, my approach to it is entirely different. My Xbox is used primarily as a Netflix machine and occasionally for playing games like Overwatch or the Dark Souls trilogy, usually on weekends when I have free time. Gaming has never been something that consumes my daily life or interferes with my responsibilities. I calmly explained that I don't obsess over video games or allow them to dictate my day-to-day activities. I don't skip meals, neglect my obligations, or isolate myself for the sake of gaming. I told him that if I had known buying the Xbox would lead to this, I would never have given it to him as a gift. This seemed to strike a nerve and he quickly became angry. He snapped back, asking if I had only called to harass him. I told him that wasn't my intention. My goal was to have an honest conversation and share my thoughts about his behavior over the past few months. Instead of engaging in a productive discussion, he dismissed me outright, calling me crazy and insisting that everyone plays video games. This response made it clear to me that he wasn't willing to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. What's more, it confirmed a suspicion that others had pointed out to me. His streaming ambitions are merely a decoy. They're an excuse he uses to justify playing video games all day. By framing it as a goal or a project, he feels entitled to dedicate endless hours to gaming under the guise of pursuing something meaningful. In reality, there's no real effort or strategy behind his streaming, it's just a way to legitimize his gaming habits. The more I reflect on this, the more I realize how deeply entrenched he is in this behavior. It's not just about the time he spends gaming, it's about the way it's affecting his priorities, his responsibilities, and our relationship. He's dismissive of my concerns and unwilling to take accountability for how his actions are impacting not just himself but also the people around him. His defensiveness and refusal to engage in a constructive conversation have left me feeling unheard and frustrated. At this point, I'm at a loss for how to move forward. I care about him and want to support him in pursuing his interests, but I can't ignore the toll this is taking on our relationship. Gaming in moderation can be a fun and relaxing hobby. However, when it becomes an all-consuming activity that interferes with real-life obligations and relationships, it's a problem that needs to be addressed. For now, I'm left wondering whether he's willing to see things from my perspective or if this is a deeper issue that he isn't ready to confront. I told him that my mind isn't changed and that I think he has a problem and should speak to someone. He said nothing to this. I then said that I don't feel we have anything more to really speak about and that I can't spend my time worrying about him. I feel like I am going to get hate for this, but I won't budge on it. He is not my child and I can't force a grown man to eat or go outside. I've done my research and slept on it. Many people PM'd me and commented to tell me their stories of dealing with a loved one with video game addiction or that they were once in his shoes. This is not a battle I want to be in. He is not the person I met last year. He responded to this with a very mellow voice that he knows he's been inattentive and would like a chance to make it up to me. He said he wanted to go on a date tomorrow. I declined and he started rambling about how perfect I am for him. I thought the same once. He kept going and said I'm being ridiculous and starting telling me the things he could be doing instead of playing video games. Such as, I'm not a drinker, I don't cheat, etc. I'm sad because before we dated he truly was a good friend. He was someone I could rely on, someone who made me laugh and brought a sense of stability to my life. But as our relationship progressed, things changed. Today, as I neared the end of our phone conversation, I told him that I was almost home and needed to go. There was a long pause on his end before he finally said, okay. What struck me the most wasn't just his words, or lack thereof, but the fact that the video game noises didn't stop throughout the entire call. He didn't pause, didn't turn off the console, didn't even give me his full attention. He merely lowered the volume, and even that was only by a fraction, just enough to make it bearable but not enough to truly listen. It was a small detail, but it spoke volumes about where his priorities lay. I didn't bring it up because deep down I knew it wouldn't matter. Even if I had asked him to stop, he likely wouldn't have. After we hung up, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. I realized that this wasn't a situation I could fix, no matter how much I cared about him. His unwillingness to acknowledge the problem, or even to take a break from gaming for a meaningful conversation, was a clear indication that things wouldn't change. I decided then and there that I couldn't continue to invest my energy in someone who refused to meet me halfway. Fortunately, our work environment makes it easy to avoid crossing paths. It's a large building and I've already started making adjustments to ensure I won't run into him. This decision wasn't easy, but it felt necessary for my own well-being. I'd also like to address something else that has come up since my original post. Over the past few days, I've received private messages from people accusing me of being unsupportive, calling me an absolute bitch for not encouraging his gaming pursuits. Some even said that I would regret everything when he becomes a famous streamer. Others went so far as to suggest that my concern about him skipping work or risking his job was purely selfish, that I was only worried about losing access to his income, as if that's what our relationship was about. These messages were upsetting, but they also reinforced my decision. I know my reasons for ending things, and they have nothing to do with the accusations being thrown at me. Ultimately, I've come to terms with the fact that his gaming addiction is a problem that he needs to address on his own. I can't force him to see it, and I can't fix it for him. What I can do is prioritize my own happiness and move forward. And yes, I'm still going to Japan. It's a trip I've been looking forward to, and I won't let this situation take that away from me. Let's read some comments and suggestions. First comment or suggestion was, my fiancé's younger friend, around 23, was dating a guy who wanted to be a professional gamer and lived off her. I didn't know him, but I wanted to tell him, oh dude, we'd all like to do nothing all day, but somebody has to work. She eventually broke it off with him and is now engaged to a chemical engineer. She's very happy. I don't see why young, attractive girls mess around with losers. Money isn't everything, he doesn't have to be rich, but find someone who's capable of being an adult and pulling his own weight at least. It's like they don't realize that being young and attractive they can have their pick of anyone. Find someone who is kind to you and has a decent work ethic. Second comment was, but this whole story makes me think of a great plot line for Watch It on Plane movie. Probably directed by Todd Phillips, maybe starring Dax Shepard as the guy who's still in school but has dreams of Twitch stardom. Maybe Christine Bell as the GF who leaves him for a trip to Japan, or maybe South Korea, only to be blasted with images of her ex on giant monitors in downtown Tokyo, or Seoul, because he became a huge streamer playing some obscure, to Americans, game. He tries to woo her back. Shenanigans ensue. But they don't get back together but learn to some important life lessons. Third comment was, also unless he's incredibly good at the games he's playing, he's unlikely to gain any kind of following. Most large streamers either started off with a large following on another platform, got in early and are very good at a new game, or are female and willing to show some skin. This guy is none of these things, so it's unlikely he'll ever make it to a stage where he makes more than a few bucks, as even investing a ton into upgrading his A/V setup and adding commentary is unlikely to garner him any sizable audience without one of the aforementioned characteristics. Also, even if he had these things, it's stupid to assume you can make a living off something as uncertain as streaming, so OP is justified regardless. Thank you for listening the story to the end. If you enjoy our videos, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a good day, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it and hit the notification bell icon to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.